The Battle of Saint-Julien saw Imperial French troops led by Jean Gabriel Marchand attack Austrian soldiers under Johann Nepomuk von Littitz. In tough fighting, the Austrians managed to hold off persistent French assaults during this war of the Sixth Coalition clash. The next day, the Austrians withdrew within the defences of Geneva, a distance of 9 kilometres to the northeast. The battle was part of operations in which a French army led by Marshal Pierre Augereau squared off against Austrian forces under Ferdinand. Graf Bubna von Littitz. The 1814 campaign in northeast France pitted Emperor Napoleon against the main Allied armies of Field Marshals Karl Philipp, Prince of Schwarzenberg, and Gebhard Lebrecht von Blücher to the east of Paris. Meanwhile, a lesser campaign was fought around Lyon and Geneva to the south. In January 1814, the Austrians seized Geneva and occupied vast tracts of eastern France, but they failed to capture Lyon. In mid-February, Pierre Augereau launched an offensive from Lyon toward the north to recapture territory. On his extreme right flank, Marchand's division recaptured parts of Savoie and advanced to the gates of Geneva, which was an important Austrian base. Alarmed for the safety of his supply line to Germany, Schwarzenberg quickly dispatched massive forces to guard his southern flank. Invasion. Geneva falls. Rather than directly invading France from the east across the Rhine, the army of Bohemia under Karl Philipp, Prince of Schwarzenberg, moved south into Switzerland. On the 21st of December 1813, Austrian formations of the army crossed the Rhine at Basel, Grenzoch, Laufenburg and Schaffhausen, while Swiss military units stood aside. Once across the Rhine, the army of Bohemia executed a right wheel and plunged across Swiss territory into France. Among the formations in the army were Ferdinand, Graf Bubna von Littitz's 1st Light Division, consisting of 6,388 troops and 24 artillery pieces. Hieronymus Karl von Colloredo-Mansfeld's 1st Corps, comprising 15,708 men and 64 field pieces, and Alois von Liechtenstein's 2nd Corps, including 12,708 troops and 64 guns. Prince Frederick of Hesse-Homburg led the Austrian Reserve Corps, which consisted of 2 elite infantry divisions and 2 cuirassier divisions, a total of 18,500 men and 100 guns. The German 6th Corps under Prince Philip of Hesse-Homburg initially numbered 9,250 soldiers from Hesse-Darmstadt, Frankfurt, Eisenberg, Reus and Wurzburg. It mustered at Frankfurt am Main before leaving for France in January with 13,000 soldiers and 16 field pieces. When Bubna reached Geneva on the 30th of December 1813, its French commander promptly had a paralyzing stroke and his 1,500-man garrison quickly surrendered to the Austrians. Geneva's arsenal contained 117 heavy guns, 30 field guns and muskets for 1,000 men. Napoleon was so angry at the loss of the city that he threw the prefect in prison, even though a civil commission cleared him of wrongdoing. After his coup, Bubna operated as a practically independent commander. He left Theophil Joseph von Zechmeister in charge of Geneva and captured Bourg-en-Bresse on the 11th of January 1814. Napoleon assigned Marshal Pierre Augereau to defend Lyon, mount a threat to the Allied south flank and recapture Geneva. On the 14th of January, the Emperor ordered Marshal Louis Gabriel Suchet to send 10,000 infantry plus cavalry from the eastern Pyrenees to help Augereau. Lyon saved. Augereau reached Lyon on the 14th of March, where Louis-François Félix Musnier informed him that only 1,200 soldiers and 500 raw conscripts were available to defend the city. Leaving Musnia to make the best of a bad situation, Augereau rode to Valence to round up more troops. By the 16th of January, Austrian patrols lurked outside the walls of Lyon. Believing his shaky soldiers would not be able to hold Musnia, moved them to the west bank of the Saône River on the 17th of January, evacuating the city. Having got wind of this development, Bubna sent an officer to demand Lyon's surrender. When the Austrian negotiator arrived, a mob gathered nearby and began threatening to throw him in the river. Playing a good bluff, Musnia magnified his own strength and exaggerated the hostility of the city's residents. The hapless Austrian officer's report caused Bubna to reconsider trying to immediately seize the city, which Musnia reoccupied. Even so, Bubna hung around Lyon during 1819 January. Late on the 19th, 1,200 French troops arrived from Valence and helped drive the Austrians out of the suburbs. On the 20th of February, 900 troops and 20 cannon reached Lyon, and on the 21st, Augereau returned with 200 cavalry. By this date, Bubna's column had retreated north to Pont-d'An. He abandoned Macon soon after. Thus, Bubna passed up a splendid opportunity to capture an important city and eliminate a threat to Schwarzenberg's supply line. During this time, Zechmeister invaded Savoie, seizing Aix-les-Bains and Chambéry. The Austrian Second Corps began blockading Besançon on the 11th of January, while most of the army of Bohemia continued moving northwest, where it captured Langes. On the 17th, the First Battle of Bar-sur-Aube was fought on the 24th of January, and the Battle of Brienne 5 days later. Counteroffensive. French recovery. Jean Gabriel Marchand was appointed to defend Savoie with Joseph-Marie Count d'Essex as his deputy. On the 25th of January, 400 French soldiers with 2 cannons successfully defended the bridge over the Isère River at Montmélian. On the 31st of January, Zechmeister's Austrians were repelled in an attack on Fort Barrow, in which 10 to 12-year-old boys from the nearby village carried ammunition to the defenders. There was an inconclusive skirmish at Chaparelin on the 6th of February. The local authorities mobilized National Guards, retired veterans, hunters and customs officers to defend the area. Farther west, Bubna occupied Chalon-sur-Saône without too much trouble and seized Macon on the 8th of February. By February 1814, reinforcements allowed Augereau to organize his soldiers into 4 divisions. Claude-Marie Panetier led 4,200 mostly Spanish campaign veterans. Musnia commanded 5,500 veterans from Spain added to the troops holding Lyon. Marshal Bardet had 3,500 conscripts with a sprinkling of veteran cadres, and Marchand directed 4,800 conscripts formed around several veteran cadres. From left to right, Augereau arranged his divisions in the order Panetier, Musnia, Bardet and Marchand. The 2,000 French cavalry was led by Alexandre, Vicomte de Jean, and a reserve was created from 3,000 National Guards that were unfit for frontline duty. With these troops, Augereau decided to mount an offensive against Bubna's now outnumbered 12,000 men. Augereau ordered Musnia and Panetier to strike northeast from Lyon toward Geneva, where they would meet Marchand outside the city. When the offensive began on the 17th of February, Augereau remained in Lyon issuing orders. Panetier's division moved north and captured Villefranche-sur-Saône on the 18th of February and Macon the next day, driving 3,000 Austrians before him and taking 300 prisoners. Musnia moved northeast and pushed Joseph Klopstein von Ensbruck's 1,000 Austrian infantry and 300 cavalry out of Meximieux on the 18th. After seizing Nantua on the 19th of February, Musnier pursued Klopstein to the north toward Bourg-en-Bresse after rounding up 300 Austrian prisoners. Augereau sent several thousand reserve troops in Musnier's way. When Klopstein joined him at Bourg, Bubna decided to abandon the town on the 20th of February. Klopstein's brigade was originally part of the 2nd Corps before being detached to Bubna's command. On the 18th of February 1814, Napoleon inflicted a stinging defeat on an Allied corps at the Battle of Montereau. The next day Schwarzenberg decided to retreat to Troyes, where he planned to join Blucher and offer battle to Napoleon on 21–22 February. However, during the evening of the 20th he received disturbing news from Prince Frederick of Hesse-Homburg that Augereau and Marchand were advancing in the south. Schwarzenberg detached Frederick Bianchi with the 1st Corps, a reserve division and additional troops with orders to march rapidly for Dijon. On the 23rd of February the Austrian Field Marshal continued his retreat, though he and Blucher still outnumbered Napoleon 140,000 to 75,000 after subtracting Bianchi's detachment. The Austrian Field Marshal's anxiousness is best explained by a letter he received from Emperor Francis I of Austria on the 29th of January. Francis wrote, "We must not forget that the enemy can, from the south of France, move against our left, where the Allies have few men, and that it is very necessary to hold strongly the road which, in case of a check, would serve for retreat." Napoleon wanted Augereau to advance toward Chalon-sur-Saône to carry out the threat that Francis feared. On the 21st of February, Napoleon sent Augereau a letter urging the Marshal to pull on his boots of 1793. The Emperor wrote, "Count Bubna has no more than 10,000 miserable troops with which to oppose you, which will disappear like a fog before the sun." Marchand's campaign. On the 15th of February Marchand sent 800 troops against the Kiekels Pass, while the Voltigeur companies of the 1st Line Infantry Regiment rushed the barricade. The Grenadiers of the 1st Line and the Carabineers of the 18th Light stormed the positions on either side. With the pass secured, Marchand's column marched through the next day, headed for Chambéry. Also on the 16th of February Dessex with 1,400 soldiers ejected a battalion of the Peterwood-Inegren's infantry regiment from Montmelion and linked up with Marchand. Johann Nepomuk von Klebelsberg rallied the Austrians at Chambéry, but on the 19th of February he retreated after being outflanked. In January, Klebelsberg commanded the 1st Cuirassier Division in the Austrian Reserve Corps before being transferred. The Austrians took up a position south of Aix-les-Bains with the right flank on the Lake of Bourget with 800 cavalry and 2,200–3,000 infantry. On the 22nd of February, the French ousted Klebelsberg from these defences with a brilliant cavalry charge. Napoleon was critical of Augereau's operations, writing, "You are dispersing your forces in many directions, to the points where the enemy is dispersed rather than striking at his heart." The Emperor wanted the Marshal to assemble his army into a single force and personally lead them. As the French offensive paused, Bubna scrambled to rearrange his troops. He ordered Georg Heinrich von Schuyler's brigade to hold Chalon-sur-Saône to the last and sent Klopstein's brigade to help defend Geneva. On the 24th of February, Marchand's leading brigade under Joseph Serrant left Aix-les-Bains and drove an Austrian force out of Albans, where the road forks. Moving up the right fork the next day, Serrant caused Zegmeister to abandon Annecy and pursued him north to Allenzier-les-Cailles. Also on the 25th of February, Klopstein's brigade reached Franchi to form Kleebelberg's western flank. Marchand advanced up the left fork and captured Ramilly and Hauteville-sur-Fère, occupying Franchi on the 27th of February. Battle Klebelsberg controlled 5,600 men in 10 battalions and 8 squadrons, supported by 29 guns. Assured by Bubna that he would be sent reinforcements through Switzerland, Klebelsberg arranged his defences. He deployed Zegmeister on his left at Airchamps and Klopstein on his right at Saint-Julien and Geneva and Bardonnux. Marchand ordered Serrand to move in the shadow of Mont-Salve to outflank Zegmeister. The French general sent Dessex to attack Klopstein's right flank at the hamlets of Theria and Tourens. Marchand would personally direct the centre attack directly against Saint-Julien. On the 1st of March 1814 at 8 am, Serrand began pressing back the Warras-Dunkers infantry from Le Petit-Chable into its main defence line at La Place near Airchamps. 2 hours later, Dessex's brigade in 3 columns drove the Austrians from Viry, Prasley and Sogny. A half-battalion of the Wenzel Colorado Infantry Regiment held up the French advance until being outflanked by one of Dessex's columns moving from Sogny. As part of his attempt to turn the Austrian right, Dessex ordered a battalion to move along the airstream near Theria and Cray. To counter this move, the Austrians moved a battalion of the Wenzel Colorado Regiment to the right flank. Nevertheless, Dessex captured Cray and Theria and some nearby high ground. Marchand's centre column reached the heights south of Saint-Julien and began to attack the town. This was blocked by 3 companies each from the Peterwood-Ina Grenz and Colorado infantry regiments. Marchand launched a second assault, but it was beaten back by a counterattack from 2.5 companies from the Vogelsang infantry regiment. After this success, the Colorado and Vogelsang regiments retook Theria. Dessex fed new battalions into action, but his efforts to roll up the Austrian right were frustrated by 5 companies of the Kaunitz infantry regiment. By nightfall, Dessex held Theria and had troops moving along the Turns ravine. Marchand ordered another assault against Saint-Julien, but his column encountered a battery of 14 Austrian guns, including 4 12-pound cannons. The Austrian guns outdueled the French artillery, knocking out 2 or 3 of their adversaries' cannons. While both sides camped on the battlefield, Marchand was troubled to find out that his troops had fired off most of their ammunition. He worried that he might have to retreat 100 kilometres to Fort Barrow to resupply his division. Aftermath. The action was a tactical Austrian victory. The victors inflicted 1,200–1,400 casualties on the French while sustaining only 650 casualties. Another authority stated that the French lost 1,000 killed and wounded and 300 captured out of 11,000, while the Austrians lost 650 men out of 6,000. The French also lost 5 field pieces. Meanwhile, Augereau had sent Bardet's division to join Marchand via Bellegarde-sur-Valserine. Marchand was spared from retreating when Bardet captured Fort La Recluse and advanced along the north bank of the Rhône River toward Geneva. Alarmed at this incursion, Bubna quickly ordered Klebelsberg to pull back from Saint-Julien to Geneva. Marchand was able to obtain ammunition from the stocks at Fort La Recluse. In late February, Panettière's division and Digen's cavalry occupied Lons-le-Saulnier and chased the Austrians to Poligny. Augereau set up his headquarters in Lons-le-Saulnier and ordered Musnier to join him after detaching 2 battalions to Bardet's division. Augereau intended to strike east through Marez to Nyon on the shore of Lake Geneva. By the 2nd of March his advance guard was in Marez in the Jura Mountains. When he heard that Augereau's column reached Saint-Sergue near Nyon, Bubna realized he must either prepare to be besieged in Geneva or take the field, risking the loss of the city. He sent his cavalry far to the rear at Yverd and Les Bains. Bardet's division occupied Saint-Genès-Paully on the west side of Geneva, while Marchand held the south bank of the Avre River, erroneously believing that Marchand and Bardet could easily capture Geneva. Augereau recalled Musnia's division from Champagnole. He gathered together the divisions of Panatia, Musnia and Dijon and prepared to march northeast to Besançon, where he planned to defeat Liechtenstein's Second Corps. Hearing of the French change of strategy, Bubna stayed in Geneva, knowing that Marchand did not have sufficient means to capture the place. The 40,000-strong army of the south under Bianchi made its appearance on the 4th of March when its leading echelons arrived in Chalon-sur-Saône. A second column under Maximilian Alexander von Wimpfen attacked Poligny, while a third column led by Prince Philip of Hesse-Homburg occupied Dole. Augereau relinquished all his gains and rapidly retreated to Lyon in order to protect that city. Forces. Austrian Order of Battle, First Lieutenancy, Feldmarschall Lieutenant Ferdinand Bubna von Littitz. Source: NAFZIGA. George. The End of Empire. Napoleon's 1814 Campaign. Solihull, UK. Kilian and Amp Company. pp. 554–555, 641. ISBN 978-1-909982-96-3. Missing or empty. URL = Source of regimental numbers. Puker Otto von. Our Armies of the Napoleonic Era. New York, N.Y. Taplinger Publishing. pp. 82–84, 89–91. ISBN 0800854713. French Order of Battle. General of Division Jean Gabriel Marchand. General of Division Joseph-Marie Dessex. Source: NAFZIGA. George. The End of Empire. Napoleon's 1814 Campaign. Solihull, UK. Kilian and Amp Company. pp. 611–612, 639. ISBN 978-1-909982-96-3. Missing or empty. URL =